Well, Australia has stepped up military support for Ukraine as the Prime Minister heads to the NATO summit in Lithuania. An Air Force surveillance plane will patrol the skies over Europe near the Ukraine border, and about 100 Australian military men will be based in Germany for 6 months to help operate it. Let's bring in ASPI Senior Analyst Malcolm Davis. Thank you for joining me, Malcolm. This is about as close as we can get to boots on the ground, isn't it?
Well, look, Australia has been involved in training Ukrainian forces in Europe for some time. So this is a positive step by the government to add to that package. That E-7 Wedgetail, the aircraft you're talking about, will provide a really effective eye in the sky for NATO to support Ukraine in terms of defending its country against Russia. The Wedgetail is probably the most advanced airborne early warning and battle management platform in the world. So that will be a valuable addition to Ukraine's ability to defend its airspace.
On the basis of that, though, is it likely to be targeted by Russia?
No. I think that if the Russians do that, then essentially they'd be having to attack an asset within NATO airspace, and NATO would be then quite within its rights to enact Article 5, which would be an attack on one is an attack on all. So I don't see the Russians targeting this platform.
Where does this end for Australia? Obviously we have been involved in this for some time. We've been giving money, we've been sending bushmasters, etc. This is an indication that we're not likely to get out of this anytime soon. Is there anything further Australia as a nation could or would do in terms of involvement in this war?
Look, we should not be looking to get out of this anytime soon. I think that's the key point I'd make. What we should be doing is assisting Ukraine in any way we can to ensure that it wins this war and wins decisively. The worst thing that could happen, short of escalation past the nuclear threshold by Russia, would be if Russia were to emerge from this war victorious in some way, because that would embolden Putin to try again in a few years, either within Ukraine or against NATO directly. So the best thing that Australia can do is to ramp up its support for Ukraine, and that means providing capabilities such as the Hawkeye armoured vehicles and the classic F-18 Hornets that are sitting in a shed in Guam and not being used, and essentially doing everything it can alongside its partners in NATO to support Ukraine and ensure that Ukraine wins.
The PM's going to meet Zelensky. Should we expect any more immediate announcements?
Well, I think that it's hard to say. I think that he does need to provide something more than the Wedgetail, and he does need to certainly provide something more than the last package that he sent a couple of weeks ago. So one of the issues that is open to question is should we be providing Ukraine with the classic F-18 AB Hornets that are now in storage? I think a lot of people, myself included, say we should. The other issue, of course, is the Hawkeyes, which I think everyone is calling for the Hawkeye armoured vehicles to be sent to Ukraine. And frankly, it's mystifying as to why this government is refusing to do so. The third thing that Albanese could say at the NATO summit would be to announce an Australian ambassador in Kyiv. Most other European states have their ambassadors in Kyiv. Australia does not, and that's a mystery as to why we don't have that.
Malcolm Davis, thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure.